All right, welcome back for another episode of us looking at our sextup maps of how teams play in the IPL and what they did in the auction that will change that or help that, or not at all, I suppose. We're going to be looking at KKR and the Sunrisers, who are both here for us on the map. And we're going to be comparing them to the averages in the league. If you are new and you don't want to go back and watch the other episode, basically, I'll make it really clear. We split the game up into 6 different parts. Then we've looked at wickets and we've also looked at economy. I've come up with marks for all of those. And essentially, you want your team to be outside the lines on the right-hand side, which is batting, and inside the lines on the left-hand side, which is bowling. Okay, with all that being said, let us get rid of KKR for a moment. So let us start with the Sunrisers, who, when they started the innings last time, they weren't particularly good. They were terrible when opening the batting. And I'm not really sure how they have gone about fixing that here, unless the plan is for Harry Brook to bat at number 3, or they're just hoping for Mayank Agarwal to spring back into form. But either way, they don't have a dead certainty here to fix the top order. But you can see that they were fine in the middle order last time. This probably looks better than fine. They didn't lose any wickets in the middle order, but you can see that when it came to the economy, there was only a small bump there. However, if you want to score a lot quicker in the middle order, Harry Brook and using Glenn Phillips should certainly explode that area for you. You could see that they didn't lose too many wickets in the batting power play, and they certainly didn't lose, well, any in the middle. And they threw everything they had at the death batting, but that didn't really come off. Perhaps they just lost too many wickets, but you could see that the death batting economy was fairly poor for them. Perhaps that can be shored up by using someone like Heinrich Klaassen, who may have to keep, because I'm not sure that Glenn Phillips even keeps anymore. And also, if they don't use Klaassen as a keeper, I'm not sure they have a proper finisher there either. But realistically, it's probably going to have to be their middle order who make the majority of the runs at their death, because their batting isn't that deep. They're certainly a team without that many strong all-rounders available to them at the moment. Their bowling is actually quite interesting because if you remember back to that one period, their bowlers were all doing fantastically well and it looked like they were going to have a great season. And then that was it. It was like a 4 or 5 game stretch. And you can see that all the way around, they are a below average bowling team. I suppose on the face of it, their power play bowling was their specialty. They have Bhuvi, Jansen and Natarajan at the top. Those 3 bowlers should be fine. Jansen should be better after one proper year in the tournament. If Bhuvi and Natarajan's fitness holds up, usually they're pretty good bowlers, although Bhuvi doesn't really take wickets anymore. Unfortunately, not taking wickets in the middle was something that they did a lot last season. It didn't bite them as much with the economy, but certainly it's an issue here. The bowler that did the bulk of the work was Umran Malik, and everyone else struggled. So they certainly needed more wickets here. And this is where it got interesting, because to fix this problem here, Umran Malik has been paired up with Adil Rashid. And this is quite funny because, of course, Umran Malik is a middle overs enforcer bowler, which is really Liam Plunkett's old role. And who is Liam Plunkett's bowling partner? Adil Rashid. This makes sense. However, Rashid's bowling rate in T20s in India is from 15 games where he averages 37 and goes at 8.3 and over. They had a choice between him and Adam Zampa, and they went with Rashid. But they also picked Akil Hussain, who I really like, but I'm not sure how he kind of fits into this team. You can see that they struggled again at the death here, especially with the economy. But they are backing up with essentially the same bowling unit they had last time. But if you look at the combination on paper of Bhuvi, Natarajan, Jansen, and maybe Faruqi, even think that Umran Malik might bowl a few more overs at the death, it does feel that they should have a slightly better season than last year. The biggest issue really coming out of the auction for them is who is their captain? Is it Bhuvi? Is it Markram? I'm not sure. And looking at their squad on paper, it doesn't really make that much sense. So let's move on from the Sunrisers, but have a bit of a look at Kolkata now. Oh, this is a shape. They really didn't do that much in this auction at all. Part of the reason for that is they did a lot of trades. By trades, I mean players seemed to be given to them, which means that they knew their key issues and they were trying to make sure that they were ahead of the auction so that they didn't get caught out again. Let's just have a look at this power play batting mark here. This is bad. It's really, really bad. Last year, Venki had a horrible season, maybe one of the worst ever on record, and he's really only ever had one good year. But even then he averaged 41, but with a strike rate of 128. Considering all the impact that he had on the league, when you actually look at what he's done on a game-by-game basis, it's not quite on that level. However, if he has a bounce back year and Rana chugs along again as a high 20s average 130 strike rate player, they still need someone else. And they've picked up a couple of players here, including my man Liton Das. But I would assume the more important one was going after Afghanistan's Gurbaz. He might fire. He's a fantastic player, and Bharat talked about him in a previous podcast of being someone who should make a lot of runs in Asia. But the Lytton Dust one is far more interesting. He averages 22 and striking at 126 in the last 2 years. It seems he's been chosen under the unofficial he made a lot of runs against India in a game rule. However, I will say this, I do think he's improving massively as a player. I did give him my most improved test player award, but I just think he is far different than what he used to be, and so I could certainly understand why they might have gone with him. But the truth is that they're probably going to start with Gobas, and if that doesn't translate and Venki doesn't bounce back, it's going to be tough for them no matter what. You can see that they lost a lot of wickets in the middle last time, and of course that was on purpose. They have Narayan and Jarrod there, and they are throwing the bat quite hard, knowing that they're going to lose a couple of extra wickets. And it worked, right? They have a slightly better, and from that perspective, they did actually score quicker than other teams there. And it probably would have worked a lot better if they hadn't have lost so many wickets up here. And that's where the real problem comes in though, of course, because if you're losing wickets here and you're losing wickets here, it means by the time you get to the death, you can't really kick on. Considering the amount of wickets they lost all the way through their game, you'd have to say they're using their resources quite well. But it meant that at the death, they end up with a near league average economy. And that's not really what this team was set up to do. They probably think their middle gambit will come off a little bit better here, and they're banking on the top order making a few extra runs. If that's the case, we should see a spike here again. But you can see why they struggled so much this season, when realistically the only period that they were quicker than anyone else was in the middle, and they just couldn't sustain it. When you go to the bowling, it's worth bringing up that they had Pat Cummins, one of the best bowlers in the world, who averaged 60 in the power play. Marvy actually managed to average even more than that. And also they used their spinners up front quite a bit as well, and neither of them actually took wickets there. Almost all their power play wickets came from Umesh Yadav. Quite a few of those were right at the start of the year as well. Then there was a few from Tim Southee later on, and a cameo from Russell. They didn't make big moves at the auction, partly because they obviously already made them. Shardul Thakur will come in and probably bowl at least one over in the power play, but I think he's probably more suited to the middle. He did average 40 in the power play last year. But the bigger move, of course, is Lockie Ferguson, who wasn't in great form last year, or even recently in the World Cup. But while he has struggled all in, he actually did kill in the power play last year in the IPL. So that should work quite well for Kolkata. You can see that in the middle, they certainly had a hold on teams. And of course, that makes sense. Chakravarti and Narayan are absolutely exceptional there. And they can also take wickets occasionally with Andre Russell. Nothing that should massively change this year, other than perhaps Shardul will bowl a few more overs in the middle. And while he can be expensive, he does sometimes take wickets as well. And if you look at the death, look, they didn't go particularly well last year, although they weren't horrendous. Adding Ferguson to that is, I suppose, a plus, or even if he wasn't particularly good there last year at all. They do feel like a team that kind of gambles more than most when it comes to death bowling, and Ferguson is at least a comfort blanket for them, having been a past player. All in all, their bowling was probably not that bad last year. And a great Lockie Ferguson in full form would be magnificent in this team. And in the last 3 years, Shardul Thakur is the most expensive bowler in the IPL, and so how they use him is fairly important. But this feels like a team that knew what went wrong and tried to plug it up, and maybe it will come good this time. For the next episode, shall we have a look at Punjab and the Delhi Capitals?